Okay then, right. Welcome to world's biggest golf lesson. Everybody's seen the donation thing. Big thing, obviously, today. We're trying to get the largest audience ever for a golf lesson, but for some pretty good causes. So if you go to www.worldsbiggestgolflesson.com, you'll then be able to donate. Just giving page, obviously, to help out on people who are doing unbelievable things for us at the moment in this situation. I'm Tom Gillespie. I'm a PGA fellow professional based at the Country Golf Club in Bristol, as well as doing some individual coaching there. County coach for Gloucestershire. I also work for the PGA, so I do particularly equipment tech with them. What we're going to try and do today is give you a bit of an overview of putting. It's an area of the game that we're seeing more and more really good high-profile coaches get involved in, and it's probably something at home. You might have a brilliant setup in your backyard. Some people have done some great photos and stuff done, but you can never ultimately see the result of your shot. Putting is going to be something that hopefully indoors, you might manage to get hold of a mat or something like that, or a putt out, something like that on your carpet, so that you can do a bit of something. And working on your putting during this period of time hopefully means, touch lots of wood. We get golfing pretty soon. It will give us a kind of head start. The full swings, you'd be amazed how quickly you can get your full swing back into action, but it might take you quite a bit to get your putting back into action. It's a much finer action. It's a much tougher. It's a tougher part of the game, but it's much tougher to get yourself into your routines. There's a lot of things that we need to do to be able to do our putting and perform our putting as well. So the first thing for me, what I'm going to try and do is go through a few of the things that I look for straight away, kind of key things with putting. Some fundamentals, if you like, although I wouldn't necessarily cause on that. There's a few preferences that I perhaps go towards in there. What's key, what creates your putt, so just like a full shot. And then we'll start to look at a few ways to kind of build your putting stroke, some checkpoints from there, and then also some drills, something that you can add in there or maybe do a little bit of. One of the first things I always think about putting, and this has become really noticeable in the last probably 3 or 4 seasons, where we've got a lot more internet and stuff like that, and you'll notice the guys who are the top putters, they do things and they use similar ideas that they use in the full game. What I mean by that is there are a series of impact factors. So we're used to somebody talking about smash factor in the driver, or what's the relationship between the path or 3-dimensional swing direction, segments of contact, all these sorts of things. When we get people with putting, they tend to think, oh yeah, it's just feel like, I try to swing back straight through and all this sort of stuff. A putt, just like every other golf shot, is controlled by these impact factors. And what we want to make sure of is that the impact factors are controlled as best they can be, that you're in control of them, and that then gives us consistency and then better results. So one of the things you notice always straight away with the top players in the world, putting styles slightly different. But one thing is noticeable, there was Rose with this axis putter that he uses now, but some of this was Steve Stricker, similar thing. Tiger's obviously is Cameron, is where they were worn, and they would wear into the centre of the face like they would do with a wedge, 7-iron drivers, or like you see this impact spot. Because the most important thing in golf is the overriding impact factor on every single golf shot is how close you hit in line with the centre of gravity, or where the balance is of that head, for want of a better term. So when you're putting, if you start hitting out here out the toe, out here out the heel, you're going to have putts that don't go where you want them to. They'll get a certain amount of side spin during their skid, so they'll be offline. So if, for example, you're hitting it out the toe, the blade's going to open, you're probably going to get some sort of spin coming on there, and the ball's going to start off. Once it goes into the pure roll, so it starts rolling on top of the surface, it's going to already be going offline. You're also going to be struggling to control how much of the energy you're moving is effectively going into that ball. So there used to be, certainly when I was playing competitively, a lot of people were talking about, downhill putts hitting out of the toe. But the problem is you're going to hit it out of the toe, the blade's going to open, you're going to lose some of that speed, but it is that opening of the blade going to mean the ball starts too far to the right or too far to the left. So the first key fundamental for me is always, can I get the player hitting the centre of the putter? Because with a golf swing, the best way of describing this, you have, so you pegged it up. I got it out a few minutes ago. You have things that determine the shot direction. So the first one of those is where the face is pointing at impact. So you start hitting off centre, it twists open, twists close, you hit it out the heel, back to the shaft there, it'll still twist. You're going to start moving it across. So the closer you hit to that centre point, more of that face position you're going to have. How much you swing this way or this way, so the path of the putt doesn't have as big an influence. So on a normal shot, it's around about an iron shot, give or take, it's around 75% of the shot direction, starting direction is to the face, and 25% to the back. With a putt, it can go as high as 92%. So if you got the face right, the famous putt, the Phil Price putt in the Ryder Cup back in 2002 at Belfry, he was moving the putter like that across the ball. And you see something like Akucha these days, you see it brings it back, the putter comes marking the inside. But both those players are very, very skilled at get that face square impact and get the centred strike. So that's why you'll see people like Tiger, Justin Rose, Stricker having to change the face on their putts, have new insert to put in, or essentially putting wear marks into them. So key. They're not really interested because it's got so much less of an influence. The second thing is your control of movement. So you've got kind of different movements you can make with that putt. You can go up and down. You're not going to extend your arms to keep the putter at the same level all the time. So as you go back, the putter's going to come up, it's going to come down, it's going to come back up again. So you have an upward and downward motion that we've got to try and control. Because there's a certain amount of loft on that putter. So again, if we're hitting on centre, that's going to change that loft. But equally, if we're hitting different parts of this upward downward movement, we're going to present different lofts. And we need that little bit of loft. We need to get the ball out of the surface that it's sitting down in, so we can get on top and get a bit of rolling going on as early as possible. So where we're controlling this movement, the upward and down moment, it doesn't have that loud when you swing, you've got more of this going on. That's going to be one of your controls. Your other control, this direction, moving away from you towards you. Again, that's where we'll start to see the shape of movement. We're wanting to ideally minimise that as much as we can, because it could mean that somebody, for example, who's taking the putter out there might do some movement, might start twisting the putter shaft, changing the face position, and vice versa if they're excessively coming in here. Obviously, there are players who control that extremely well over time, but we want to be in control of that motion. Our other motion is our backwards and forwards motion. We want to be able to control it. So this is obviously going to have a big bearing on how much energy you're going to produce, when you're going to produce it. Obviously, it's going to have an influence on how much up and downward we're going to get at the same time. So we've got three pretty big degrees of motion, particularly when we're thinking of, you might have read the green extremely well, used any of the really good systems that are out there, aim point, any of these sorts of systems which are really good at getting you to read. But if then your control in that direction means that you're not really controlling the speed very well, it's going to be very difficult for you to control your rate. Control that one. So, the third thing I think you've got to almost get right is then being into a position where you can tell what's going on here, being able to read what's happening with the putt and then control those motions. So that's where we've had the old idea, which a lot of us kind of went into for periods of time, where we had to get the eyes directly over the ball. There's a lot of more studies gone into that, and often we found that your eyes might be directly over the ball. Are your eyes now over the ball, but over to the right or over to the left? Have you got a slight eye dominance? And often when we get into that position where the eyes might be directly over the ball, where this joint and this joint are, causes a bit of a problem with that motion and that backward motion. So what we tend to find, we've got enough room to kind of do it totally out here, is we have had a certain amount of tips on it right now. We need to get it on the frown line, things like that. And what's a good thing to do is to set up a line of balls over around about 25 foot up. And when you get into position, your eye position to be able to see your line. When you look up from that position, I remember getting a finger. It's wrong to say potty American guy, but it's like an unusual American guy who would often talk about what you want to do to get a see with your kind of retina wanting to properly see. He used to do it with like a toilet roll. But essentially getting yourself into that position. When you look forward, I'm just making my hands look forward and looking very much in a straight line. I'm seeing those puts there. When I look up, without moving my body, if I'm looking forward, those puts, that line of balls running out to 23, 24 feet, look straight, then I know that's my own position. That's what my own to be able to see my putt. But equally, and that's going to help you with the alignment. Most of us would probably pick something like that in align with. It doesn't matter what too much wants to get over there, it's a bit more respect. So you've got to get yourself into that position equally to do that. So the traditional kind of eyes are over the ball, arms hang down. There is a slight issue with that. What you'll probably notice is my hands are a bit inside the kind of line of my shoulder joints. Very, very far down my putter, probably this putter shaft, and my arm are on very different angles. And that kind of comes from where a lot of people have that idea, oh yeah, I'm going to swing my arms like a pendulum. But because your putter itself is on a slightly different angle, and then even the sweet spot on this is moving on a very slightly different angle, it doesn't really work like that. And this is the kind of whole idea with belly putters for a long time. Is they would often, like, fixing the belly putter, this kind of plane here, where this would intersect my back, would actually be the plane that the putter wants to swing in. That's the kind of inclined thing it wants to move on, rather than our arms being there. So the better thing to do is to, from that standing position, so what I'm trying to do is get totally even, right to left, heel to toe, so feeling myself balanced and even, letting myself then bow forward. So I've still got lots of stability here, but I'm allowing this now to hang. My arms are hanging from the shoulder joints. So obviously my hands aren't going to be like that on the putter. So as I turn them forward, my kind of elbow joints will point up. You'll notice my arms get slightly bent. So in being in that sort of position, I'm then able to present myself to the putter. So my eye line, well, probably well onto the inside of the ball, but for me what's really important there is I'm not making an unnecessary movement over in this direction or this direction. I feel like we can just put energy into moving the putter away from the ball and swing back in the opposite direction. Get into the more kind of pure in line stroke that some people do trying to swing the putter in a straight line. Get into that sort of position. That way, and then I'm going to try and make compensation. Because one of the things you've got to think about when you're putting is a bit like the full swing, there isn't a model that fits everybody. There's always going to be variation. there's always going to be some slight differences. So we want to make sure, we want to make sure that we're not necessarily set that. I'm going to swing this way more. Right. Control it going that way. Control it going this way. Control it going that way. The arms have got room to move. The arms have got room to get that putter swinging accurately and smoothly. So then we're going to talk about the stroke itself. So, I mentioned a little bit earlier about how the ball needs to get out of the ground. So, the most common things we see is people put the ball to the dead centre of the feet. Then their hands might lean back, and they might end up knocking down onto the ball. We need to get the ball to come up, to get off the floor. So very much like a driver. Again, it could be a variation if you had somebody say like Zach Johnson in front of you, who likes his hands very much in that sort of position. He has a much more centralised, because as he's coming through, he's presenting more loft. He tends to use a very, very low loft, negative loft putter at sometimes. So he creates a bit of extra loft through his wrist. Again, if you tend to use this style of putter, plumb neck, you might have maybe a bit of press. This ball position is a little bit more that way. It's going to be a little bit easier for me to present that loft. I'm not going to be hitting down on the putt. Equally, I'm not going to be hitting up and creating extra loft and bouncing it forward. So, for me, it's tough to get the putter head to sit central and the ball's just slightly ahead of that. You're going to get slight variations on that. You might have some eye dominance, which maybe means that you get slightly more tilted. So if you looked at somebody like Jack Nicklaus, who would kind of get very much there, even Seve, he would often be there, he would be a little bit more behind the ball. Mickelson is another one who kind of is very near to his right, but the right position's locked in so they can see the line well for them, they can aim well and correctly, but equally they're creating that amount of loft. So it's where people like Mickelson at one point, I think he was using a putter with more loft than his driver, because he had such a forward position, he had a very, very big kind of shaft lean to try and control that, and that was his way. But he was able to then lock in what he was doing there with his hands, and how he was making that move. The other thing that's quite useful to be thinking about when we're going in there, just make a couple of changes on here, is this is also going to have we're going to have that's going to have a big bearing on how you're going to create and ultimately put power into your putt. So again, we've got some players who like to feel as though they accelerate through the putt. Reducing off can be a little bit of a problem with that. Sometimes in the acceleration, it can mean you're doing some stuff like gearing the putt. It's a club that starts to then create some closure on the putt face, create some sort of issues, perhaps the amount of loft that's presented, or the kind of downward angle or upward angle on the putt. So I tend to see more and more with people like that, putting that a little bit. Is some people who are thinking about the distance going back, create that distance going through. There's some reasonable kind of physics that works into that. If I drop my putter from there, and I drop it from there, when it gets to the low point of that small movement, it takes the same amount of time when I drop it from there, whether I drop it from there. So that means that your longest swing, backswing should, through gravity, create more power, vice versa should. Obviously, we're not in a pure pendulum motion. Your shoulders aren't working as a pendulum, your forearms aren't working as a pendulum, the putter itself might not be working as a pendulum. But the influence of pure gravity on that is going to help you. So what I tend to see with a lot of players now is if they're thinking a little bit about how far they're swinging it back to control the pace of the putt, what they're usually actually doing is changing the speed that they swing the putter back. So if I've got to move it further away from me for a longer putt, I'm going to put more effort in. This is going to move slightly quicker. Then what I'm really trying to do is from there is actually allow it to move back at the same speed. I'm not trying to change the torques that I'm putting on, the energy that I'm putting in at this end. I'm very much trying to keep this very locked up. It's a relatively passive kind of thing. If you get it back and let it drop, get it back and let it drop. Some slightly more aggressive putters, Tiger's probably the best example of that, where he did feel like he had a little bit more release. It worked extremely well for Tiger. There's no way of saying stop doing it, but he was incredibly good at controlling that. That's why I tend to not talk too much to people about acceleration. More than that, put speed in going backwards, just let it speed forward. Put speed in right, let it go forward. That gets us in that place. Probably the one thing we haven't really spoken about, pivotal to all this, is going to come into it, is the handle of that club. And equally to a certain extent, the head of that club. Now, the handle on your club, there's a lot more research going into this these days. To a certain extent, there's been a lot of, what's the best way of putting it? Old wives' tales that often told us things about grips. So, for example, putting a bigger grip on to reduce your amount of rotation, and a smaller grip on to increase your amount of rotation. The changes have got to be huge for that to be measurable. And the weight of the grip has a big bearing in it. So it's right through the back. A lot of research that golf companies are doing at the moment. Did a bit of a paper on it, but it's saying if you don't keep the grip weight right to balance the club, you can change grip size. Absolutely no influence at all. But if we think of we're in this position, we've kind of allowed these arms to come down. You don't want to be looking at how, one, your hands feel comfortable on that. So we're trying to get palm control onto the probably finger control. Finger control allows us to kind of get wrist action, which can then help us create power. To a certain extent, if we've got more palm control, one, that's probably going to help us keep the wrist a little bit squarer. And two, that's going to mean it's a more even pressure throughout. Here, when I'm coming into that position, as I'm moving through, you can feel changes in the grip pressure as the weight of the club works on it. If I'm into that sort of position with this club, I'm almost going to be kind of doing too much of a stroke. So, looking at where that is, allowing that to sit. So for some of us, that might be something that's a bit of a different profile. So if you think of a lot of super strokes, a lot of people don't have to really big to go to the small things like flat sows, particularly when they're maybe trying to get the hands underneath here. That flat sow seems to make that work. Something like Podger Carrington's often been a good one with that. It's often used ones that are there. You see that a little bit with Speed, again, where he's got his lead hand low. So again, the flat sow tends to sit a little bit easier into that crux of the hand, the bottom hand, so it makes it sit it. Even that material that I always use rubber grips. I struggle to get the response back from super strokes and things like that. It's a personal thing. As feel it. But that shape, I always have a pistol style grip, some kind of iomics in particular, with this sort of shape. Just sits a bit easier into that paddle for me. Means when this hand comes on, this is the slightly slimmer part, I can sit into there. So we're getting into that hold. With the grip, you've got to really look at your movement and start to think, right, how am I going to change the positioning of the hands through the handle? You know, am I going to use a bigger grip that might get my hand more like this, more maybe underneath? Is that something I want to see if somebody's particularly struggling at being, you know, in that position naturally, for example? That bigger grip might help them get a bit more here, and then those wrists kind of take over a bit of a different role. The putter head itself, again, is a bit of a misnomer. People often thought this sort of putter you should be using if you are arcing your stroke and trying to square it up, and vice versa. If anything, we're starting to see it's a bit more unmeasurable like that. You don't see that actually happen. The putter head, first of all, influences your ability to set up an impact or address. So something like this that doesn't have a lot of lines on it, for me, I find quite straightforward to line up, but some people need the wider lines of 2 balls. So having something like here, most of the marks on this putter are towards the back of the head. Well, that moves my emphasis a little bit more this way, whereas naturally, when I putt, I tend to have a bit of a tendency to get a bit here, do that. So by that moving my emphasis, it helps me get into that position. That's where it has a real big change. So that's what you've got to be thinking about with putter head design. And whether you're somebody who hits very centrally, or do you hit off centre? If you're somebody who's really struggling to hit the centre of the putter, then the bigger mallet dart style design are going to help, because you're going to have more weight back here, giving you more consistent control, but make sure you can still aim it. You know, that's why you'll see certain players have stuck with a particular design for periods of time. Sevi always used the pin style, Tiger always has the answer style putter. Someone like Stricker always had more of a zing style putter head. Somebody like Shane Lowry obviously played extremely well last year. He's been always a 2-ball player. From example, when he won the Irish Open as Hampton, he was using a 2-ball. He's always played extremely well with that. So, looking at design is really important for you. So, let's start to think about how we're putting, how you're going to improve your putting. So, one of the first things I'm get you doing a lot when you're practicing at home is you can get hold of them, have some gates. Here I'm just using a couple of ball markers. So whenever I'm putting, I'm doing this. I might, here I'm just pulling the mat, but it could be a shorter putt. I've got stations to help me kind of get some feedback on where my alignment is, my eye position where I want it to be, my head position where I want it to be. These are just slightly wider than the ball with the bar. So this will show me a lot about am I hitting out the centre. So there I hit it on the left hand side, so straight away I know I've either shut the blade or I've closed the face. 2 things that I don't want to see happen. So this would be something that I'd be doing a lot, putting these down, very much working on into my routine. I'm very happy with where the putt sits, how my body is, thinking about centre strike, so that I'm going down towards the hole. So that would be one thing I'd kind of encourage you to do as much as you can. The other thing I would tell you to do is to do with that centre strike. So this is just 2 pieces of blue tack just onto the putter. So on the putter there, so it's a couple of pieces of blue tack, really looking to kind of help with that centered strike. So I might at first not do this, these 2 out here, but the closer and closer you can get these together, the better and better. So there, as soon as I put that on, I worry less about the movement of my stroke. I'm just thinking about hitting centrally. Straight away hitting a better putt. I've got more control and everything on that. When I'd be putting indoors, there is a tendency often with these mats, if you're doing something like that, to always put from one place. But think about it, you're not doing that on the golf course. You know, it was Rory last year. I had 58 putts of 6 foot on tour last year, and he hole 50 on. That's why he kind of on tour. won FedEx and everything last year. So think, right, this sort of length putt, I'm hitting it out of the toe, I'm going to hit that putt, so I'm going to struggle. That's the one that you think, right, I should hold this time after time after time. So taking your time, setting yourself up, and practicing and putting them into that right place, and making that happen. So varying those length of putts. So doing something from say 3 foot away, which you should be holding a lot of, maybe moving up to 6 foot. When you're going back a bit further to maybe, once you get back to say 8 foot, you should really only be thinking, right, using something like a putter or something like that. You shouldn't, if you were holding those, it's going to make a big improvement to your score. But you should, statistically, you shouldn't beat yourself up for not holding them. You should be trying to put them into a good place and making them work well. So that's kind of one little thing I do. Another thing that's quite useful thing to do, hit some putts with something like a wedge, sand wedge, where rather than having an absolutely flat face, what you're going to try and do is hit it with the leading edge. So kind of holding obviously that off the ground, trying to get in the same position as we would with our putting, but it just makes it a bit tougher. The tougher it gets, the more you start to learn, especially if you're a good putter. You start to see, right, why do I do something? Why does something work? So that's a couple of little drills I'd work on. Get yourself a little framework, maybe some gates, maybe putting some little bits of blue tack, something like that on your club to get it varying distance. Sometimes varying your club, can you get it that like, because you're trying to hit on that apex of that hole. Hopefully, I mean, the thing is, you can get, most pros will tell you go on for hours without putting. But that would be my big thing. You can see I'm very working on centreness of strike and squareness of the face. If you got those two things in there, you can start to control where you start the ball, the speed you're sending in that direction. Which means then if you read the green well, you can start to play well and better and better. Hopefully I've not yakkered on too much, I usually do. As I say, hopefully visit world's biggest golf lesson and donate and say thanks to all these people who are supporting us at the moment. Hope it's been of help. If you've got questions or anything like that, don't hesitate to send something along to me through Instagram, find me on Facebook, tomgillespie at pgagolfwrx.com. And stay safe, and hopefully we'll all be golfing soon. Hopefully maybe in June or something we'll get out there and start playing golf.